where I thought we would be going into tomorrow, honestly, with how many I thought we'd see returned. We have had a steady line of people all day long, honestly, since my staff was walking in, actually helping people before our doors even open, taking ballots, and it has not stopped. There has been not a line all day long, but a steady flow of people all day, so I would not be shocked if we have probably another 1,000 ballots that could come in today, just based off of what we're already seeing in the first 2.5 hours of our office even being open today, which is great. I think one of our biggest things, I know you guys have been saying it to the press as well over the last week, was if you had your mail ballot, please return it directly to us. Don't rely on the mail at this point to get it back to us. And I think people are heeding that warning, and we're seeing that with the people coming in today, which is great. Other than that, we are as ready as we can be for going into tomorrow. Like I said, my staff has done a great job. The volume has been large, especially in the last few weeks, and they have done a great job. They have worked a lot. I owe them way more probably than the pizza I've been supplying and donuts in the morning and at lunchtime. But no, they've done a great job. I think everybody's ready for tomorrow at this point and looking forward to it.
Yeah, tomorrow we will begin the pre-canvass down in room 215, I think it is, second floor, at 7 a.m. And we'll run through the mail ballots up until they're done, which of course we hope is as quickly as possible. Our goal is always to have those done prior to the end of the day. So I think we're in good shape. We got all the equipment, all the volunteers all ready to go. I know the room's set up, so. And then also, I see Michael back there. Those who want to be press have already made contact so that they can get access into that room. There's a special area like we've always had for press. And of course, poll watchers go through your office to get the certificate to become poll watchers in accordance with the election code. So we're all set.
Yep.
And again, our judges of elections are just, and all the people in those polling places are very important to the process, and we're looking forward to smooth day ahead, I should say. All right. Comments, questions? Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to add, so Krista, when you talked about your prediction of around 60,000, I think the importance of that you're assuming, but I think it's worth saying, is you told me that ever since the beginning, because I asked you, what do you think you're expecting? And so, I didn't bet, because I'm not a betting person, but not that I would have challenged it.
Yeah, and honestly, we're right around the 80% mark that has been returned. So that's where, like I said, I think we're exactly where we thought we would be going into tomorrow. I agree. I mean, I think we all knew the numbers would not be as high as 2020. Conditions are just not the same. We knew they'd be higher than 2022. So this is kind of where we had guessed the whole time was 60 to 75,000 requests, and 80% of that we thought would be returned. So I feel like we're trending right on track with honestly every single election that we've had mail ballots. So which is kind of nice to see.
And the reason why I'm just wanted to make the point that because you predicted that and had a sense, you were preparing
Correct.
with volunteers, the setup, the staff, how the machines were going to be laid out. You had that all figured with the expectation it's going to be about this high, which is way more significant than the primaries. But I just want to emphasize then, by you preparing for that, it's not like you waited around to see that it's 60,000 and then we have to come up with a plan B or something.
Each election, I don't know if people really know this, and it's a key point and put a finer point on each. Prior to each election, the staff is doing that calculation to try to figure out how many to expect, because that calculus then leads into number of people to be in the tables and stuff. All that stuff has to happen, and you're adjusting as those numbers change. It's nice we didn't have to change that a whole lot.
Agreed.
Yeah, but okay. I also have an update. We spoke to the district attorney this morning about the suspicious and in some cases fraudulent voter registration applications. The update I will give is what basically the district attorney and our staff have been able to put together. And at this time, now the investigation is still going on, so we can't get into too much detail here in accordance with the district attorney's desires because of that investigation. But thanks to her staff, which have been on top of this since, I guess it was Monday last week, when this whole, the two batches were provided to the district attorney's office, they began immediately investigating those and have been doing so ever since, working with our elections board staff. So at this point, 57% of those suspicious applications have been able to be verified. The voters have been able to be verified. At this point, known fraudulent ones is 17%. Those that are still being investigated, they're either incomplete or non-verified, total about 26%. So those other two buckets are going to change, quite frankly, based on the continuing investigation. And I will say that a lot of those apparently that are in that category of the 26%, a good number of those they're still suspected of being fraud, but it's a very painstaking process, obviously, to go through those. So that's what I can tell you at this point. Can't give any more information, but they are continuing to investigate. We take it very seriously. We appreciate their work and the work of our staff, which has been helping and doing this work in addition to all the other work that you've heard about that's been going on. In addition, as it's been reported, we received mail-in ballot challenges. 723 mail-in ballot challenges were filed with the elections office on Friday, this past Friday, which I believe was on November 1st. The hearing on these challenges will be held by the Board of Elections this coming Friday, November the 8th at 9 a.m. We already have a meeting set up. We have a meeting every Friday after the election to begin the basically the count and canvass part. So that will take place during that meeting. All at this time, the notifications regarding this hearing are being sent out to potentially impacted voters, as well as the individual or individuals that are making those challenges. At this time, that's all we can say. Obviously, we have to hold a hearing, so we need to make sure that we get all this information gathered, get all the parties to be known, to know about this, so that we can hold the hearing on Friday. Okay? With that, I'll open it up to any comments or questions, first from my colleagues.
I'll just thank Krista and her team. They've been under great pressure, great stress. This is, maybe the biggest election we've ever run in the history of the county. Not sure yet, depends on how many voters come out, but appreciate the great work from her team and all of our volunteers that help make elections possible. So we thank them and look forward to a long day tomorrow, but we know that they work hard and they're very diligent, so we appreciate them.
Yes, I'd like to add my thank you as well to Krista and the team and the hard work that they have started and still have some work to do. So we're not over yet. And we have been, I think as a Board of Commissioners, pretty much in lockstep with how diligent they were in terms of the cases with the DA. They were the ones that caught it and it showed that the system worked. So there's no reason to think that the election is not safe and secure. However, I do think it's important that we've been saying that publicly for weeks and weeks and weeks as a Board of Commissioners. But yesterday, former President Trump actually publicly said, and I quote, and I'm quoting this specifically and would only bring it up because he mentioned Lancaster County and misinformation, that we've been trying to get the word out and not disenfranchise voters. So I'm going to read a quote directly because I don't want to paraphrase. But the quote is, in Lancaster, they found 22,600 ballots all done in by the same hand. In other words, the same exact penmanship, the same hand, the same everything. It was done by the same pen, the same exact pen, unquoted. So this statement is not true. I think the main piece there is that, he mentioned ballots, which gets people confused from a public standpoint. they were voter registration applications and not ballots. And I think that this is just so important, again, because we've spent so much time really talking about how the staff and the process is working, and then to have someone of that stature come to Lancaster and talk about that is really a really difficult thing. So I want voters to know that the election is safe and secure. As Commissioner D'Agostino just mentioned, in terms of the DA taking the case of those 2,600 voter registration forms, that's all being taken care of. So I think it's worth making that point because of the statue and of the person that came to Lancaster and really the misinformation that was mentioned. And I would hope that my colleagues would feel the same way.
Well, we've been very clear about the information, and we've tried to be, about the fact that it's voter registration. It's easy to say ballots. In discussing this, apparently, I think all of us has said ballots at one point or another. Apparently, during the press conference, I didn't even realize until LMP pointed it out, but apparently I said at one point ballots. It's not ballots, it's voter registration forms, but people have said that, and it's voter registrations. We caught them. We've all been very clear about the great work our staff did to catch them, and that our election system is secure here. I think it's a good news story, but it's interesting that Commissioner Yoder would bring that up when her own Lancaster County Democrat Committee Chair Tom O'Brien falsely claimed in a rant to LMP WITF that this is a, quote, continuation of the board elections disenfranchising people, and, quote, this expletive can't go on. So you've yet to disavow that statement by your party chair about really the big lie of this election period, which is that there was some sort of criminal conspiracy to disenfranchise a certain group of people, which is we've proven to be demonstrably false, and yet that's been allowed to go unchecked, which is the real attack on our election staff this period. And frankly, it's shameful that our election staff has been attacked this way. I think it's important for us to defend them. All three of us should be doing that. You haven't done that.
Yes, I disagree. I defended the staff. I believe that the staff did not intentionally mislead anyone, and that it was a pretty critical misunderstanding that took place. And I think that it was said at one point that Tom O'Brien named a person in the paper, and that is not correct. He did not do that. And it was a case of misunderstanding between and different people can interpret it different ways. And so Tom O'Brien stated what he stated the way he did. He's the person that mentioned it, and so I'm just saying that there was just the intention was not to intentionally mislead from a staff standpoint, and there was back and forth miscommunication, and that's what Tom O'Brien was mentioning, and did not mention the individual in terms of escalating anything as it relates specifically to staff to anyone, and I'm not in that article either.
Well, from my perspective, there's a lot of things being said by a lot of people. It would be a full-time job, quite frankly, to sit here and have everybody show a Facebook post, tweet, or any social media or email. It seems to be that all over the country people are saying things. So, somebody a long time ago who was elected official had given me some good advice with respect to something like this, and that is that, you start down the path of answering one, then it's 2, then it's 100, then it's 1,000, and then you're on a yo-yo because some people just want a litmus check, or just they want to play with this whole thing. He said, look, the best thing you can do is keep putting the facts out, because facts answer questions and theories. Nobody can dispute facts, and we've been doing that, here and, quite frankly, in the press, sometimes the national press. So, continuing to put the facts out, the information, is what our job should be, and I think we're doing that. So.
Yeah, and that was my point but I think somebody as high as a former president and candidate saying that's why I felt like we needed to just make it straight and clear for people, because how some people might, ballots are so different than the voter registration application for sure. So it's just good to clear that up.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, and like Commissioner Parsons said, it's because we get mix up sometimes, you know, in our verbiage, and you know, we get caught on that. We have to do that to correct it, because it's easy sometimes to do. But it's even easier for some others who aren't close to this. So, yeah, it's important to make sure we get the facts out. All right, anything else from the board on this? I'll just add, again, I've been saying this all along, we have a fantastic staff. I mean, you know, elections have always been safe and secure, well run, and this will definitely be the most challenging election that we have run. For many reasons. One will be well, first of all, we have the highest number of voters ever in the county at almost 366,000. While we have not had the number of mail-in ballot requests and returns as we did in 2020, the fact that as it is that we've had a record number of people who have come in and voted the Pennsylvania version of early, which almost 5,000 of those, Chris, is that right? Yeah, that's definitely a record. So, and that's challenging. We've mentioned this a lot of times, and it bears repeating. We've run 3 elections now. It used to be 1 election, basically, you go to your poll, you vote, and if you can't make it because you're going to be out of town or you have an illness, whatever, you get an absentee ballot. That's the way it had been prior to 2020 for about 100 years, quite frankly. And I say that because absentee ballots became a thing based on laws changing in some court cases. But it's been that way as long as I remember. Then all of a sudden we went to having 2 other types of elections, which is requesting mail ballot, mailing it in, or dropping it off. And then the Pennsylvania version of early voting. All 3 things are actually happening at the same time. We went from 1 to 3 happening at the same time. And I'm going to tell you, our staff does an amazing job with doing all 3. So thank you. All right. With that, I'll open it up to comments and questions from public. Just make sure you give your name and where you're from.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Ben Cattell-Knoll, Lancaster City. Commissioner D'Agostino, you frequently cite 3 things: transparency, integrity, and veracity as key values of how we run our elections in Lancaster County. I agree with those values. I agree with you that Lancaster's elections have always been conducted with the utmost of integrity, as well as veracity and usually transparency. I've seen it firsthand. I've been a poll worker almost every cycle since 2020. I have no reason to believe that this year will be any different. But yet again, as Commissioner Yoder pointed out, that integrity is under attack by one of the most powerful voices in our country, and someone who is on the very ballot that's being questioned. You know, last week and again today, you said you can't respond to every single post on social media. Well, as Commissioner Yoder pointed out, it was said in person yesterday, right here in Lancaster, just a few miles up the road. You were there, Commissioner Parsons, merely feet away based on the pictures you posted celebrating the event, when former President Donald Trump said, again I quote, as Commissioner Yoder did, in Lancaster, they found 2,600 ballots, all done in by the same hand. Based on what was just said, we can all agree that this information is false. It is incorrect. You've been saying that since your first press conference. So when former President Trump first tweeted that out, when he said it at multiple campaign events, and when he said it again yesterday in Lancaster, it's been false from day one. A portion of 2,600 is not 2,600. As I hear today, it's about 17% that are considered potentially fraudulent. Registration forms are not ballots. Those are very different. Donald Trump is lying, and you are allowing it to go unchecked. This was not an oopsie thing. He said it multiple times. He knows what he's doing, and he's continuing to do it. If we value integrity and we value veracity, we must respond. Nobody is asking or expecting you to respond to, as you said, every single tweet, everything that's on social media. You don't have to respond to Joe Schmo with 7 numbers behind his name. But when it's Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States, who you have both publicly endorsed, who you're continuing to go to events where he's pushing this information, veracity demands that we respond. Now, I'm going to say, I know this puts the 2 of you in a difficult position because your fellow Republicans have faced tremendous backlash for standing up against Donald Trump's previous attempts to undermine our elections. An angry mob threatened to hang former Vice President Mike Pence. Right here in Lancaster, a group showed up at the home of Representative Brian Cutler, Those are unconscionable things to do. They shouldn't happen, and I understand that that's probably a fear, that the backlash has been tremendous. But if we value integrity, we must respond. Many of us have pushed back. Commissioner Yoder has today, I have here, and in other forums, but it obviously means a lot more coming from someone like you, Commissioner DiAgostino, or you, Commissioner Parsons, because of your party and your position. You have not shied away from responding to what you have called election misinformation in the very recent past. You've repeatedly publicly rebuked LNP. You sent a cease and desist letter to Franklin and Marshall College. But today, I believe what I'm hearing from you is that we can all agree that what Donald Trump said about our elections here in Lancaster is false. It lacks veracity. It lacks truth. Find the courage to rebuke this with the same tenacity that you brought to our local institutions. I'm going to end by saying we go and vote tomorrow. Donald Trump has already made it abundantly clear that if he does not win the election, he will question its integrity. I implore you today to question the veracity of what he says, because again, we can all agree right here today that Donald Trump is lying about our county, that we have not counted 2,600 fraudulent ballots. So I ask you, if he's willing to lie about us, if he's willing to lie about Lancaster County, who else is he willing to lie about? What else is he willing to lie about? And if his lies go unchecked, who will defend our democracy? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Good morning, board members. Good luck in the next 48 hours, and I do appreciate Krista. I know she works hard, and the reason I'm here is Sheila O'Rourke and I are both volunteer attorneys with the ACLU Nonpartisan Voter Protection
Can you say
Program.
who you are, sir?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
give
Dwight
me-
Yoder from Gibble Craig
Thanks,
Hess.
Dwight.
Yes. And the reason that I'm here is I'd like to get more information on the challenges that have been filed. And specifically, can we get copies of those challenges and how many have been filed?
So I can answer
Solicitor?
this. So, of course, so the number of ballots is, or registration, mail-in ballot challenges is 723. Under the election code, materials related to a current election are not accessible until after the election. They can certainly be, you can do a right to know request and we can certainly get those to you. Information will be published along with our agenda for the Friday meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Law.
And where would that hearing be held?
In this room,
Okay.
9 o'clock.
And so even though the election code says that these are public records, we can't see them before the hearing?
So if you look at the provisions of the election code, the materials related to a current election are not accessible while they are in use. They are currently in use. But there will be things that will be published with the agenda.
But I guess my question is, if a challenge has been filed to somebody's right who's living overseas, is it your position we can't see the basis of that challenge and look at the actual people who have made that challenge?
At this time, notice is going out to all of the entities as is required by law. Again, this isn't a court of law, so the rules are slightly different. You can certainly make a right to know request and we can go along that route, but again, we just received these challenges late Friday and are working on the procedure. We have never had a challenge such as this in Lancaster County.
And I appreciate that, but of course a right to know request has 5 business days and then you can extend it for legal review for 30. So by the time presumably you would respond to our right to know request, the hearing would be over and we will not have an opportunity to see the basis of the challenge. I mean, it makes no sense to me. It's an adjudicative hearing. Why the actual challenge wouldn't be provided to the public?
And again, as we are preparing an agenda, they're most likely to be attached to the agenda.
Okay, so the challenge
They're
is...
still being processed. We literally just got these around 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon.
And I appreciate that. I'm not here to, I'm just trying to figure out how we can get the information so we can evaluate the basis of the challenge. We think they're similar to what's been filed in counties across the state, but we don't know that for sure. And until we're able to actually see the challenge, we're not quite sure what's in there.
Well, under the law, again, the basis of the challenge has to be that the applicant is not a qualified elector, right? So there's 4 different provisions, 4 different ways in which that may be in fact the case. The presumption is that the qualified elector is able to vote, and the presumption has to be rebutted by the challenger. So again, we have no procedures for this. We are working on that all the time right now.
And I understand. And again, I think the ACLU has sent a letter outlining the legal position, that we can provide an additional copy for the board members if that's helpful.
I received that this Saturday. Again, you're a third-party entity, so the challengers are being notified, as well as the potentially impacted voters are being notified right now.
And I understand, again, can we get the names of the challengers? Do we know who the challengers are?
We don't even have all of that compiled. So
Okay.
there were 723,
Separate challenges?
correct?
Oh, from
So-
different people?
Potentially. Again, we're compiling all of that now.
Okay, all right. Again, I know you just got this. I'm not here to
Yeah.
give you a hard time. I'm just trying to be able to get the information so we can evaluate it. Obviously, a challenge to disenfranchising overseas voters, that are guaranteed under federal law, that's a big deal. And something that I think the more we can get out in the public so people understand it, will go to address, again, there's a lot of stuff out there,
And our duty right now, Dwight, is to make sure that number one, a procedure and a proceeding is established and sunshine, and then actually the potential impacted voters are notified. That is our first priority that we're working on this
Okay.
morning.
And will those notifications include the specific challenge that has been filed?
Again, we're working on getting that completed. Again, it's most likely that these notifications are gonna be sent by email, but again, we're working with the Department of State to compile potential contact information for these potentially impacted voters.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So, Patricia Rooney, Lancaster City. I have a question for Krista, if she's still here. I just wondered, if you could give us the numbers for 2020 mail-in ballots, and what's the difference between 2020 and now? I know you said we didn't get as many this time, but does that also include the, early voting ones? When people came in and requested them straight away, and also for 2022, if you could.
Pull it out.
I have-
Just to remember
Yeah,
that-
I have 2020 burned in my mind up here. I don't know about 2020.
These are gonna be very approximate numbers, I'm just gonna throw that out there, they're definitely not gonna be exact. 2020, there was approximately 110,000 requested, and about, I think it was right around 87 to 90,000 that were actually returned. The difference between this and that, honestly, is COVID. There was a larger sense of people wanting to mail vote at that point, nervous about going out, wanted to make sure they could, things like that. Since, I will say since 2021, we have seen a huge decrease in that, and I think all counties have. It's not just us, it's statewide. 2022, I believe we had around 50,000 requested, and I believe it was around 43,000 that were returned.
That's my recollection.
So like I said, we knew we would be higher than 2022. We obviously knew that a governor's race, was gonna be lower than a presidential. We just knew, without a worldwide pandemic, we wouldn't be quite as high as what we were in 2020. You're welcome.
So when we were thinking about this, we kind of thought it may be between 2022 and 2020's numbers. And it's about right down the middle. Yep. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Yes, ma'am, come on up. Just make sure you hear your name and where you're from.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Grealish Cody, and I am attorney for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party and its candidates, as well as the Harris Wells campaign and its candidates. I'm here just to ask a couple procedural questions, and that is, has a time and a place been set for the review of, for the set-aside hearing and the review of the provisional ballots, and the provisional ballot challenge hearings?
So we will begin adjudicating those.
Right, yeah, go to Mike.
We will begin adjudicating provisional ballots on Friday. And at this time, we do not have a provisional ballot hearing officially scheduled, as we don't have any challenges to them. I would assume that we will, and I believe our plan is the following, not this Wednesday, obviously, but the following Wednesday, as it's already Sunshine's meeting time for us. But yes, we just don't have it officially
Okay.
out there yet because we haven't had to do it, because we'll have to contact those that have been challenged. There's that whole process.
Okay, I had guessed that, but
Yeah.
I wanted to be certain.
Yep.
And poll
then-
watchers will be notified
Correct.
so that you can be there.
Great, and, right, and then, my next question would be, I think everybody would be interested to hear for the computation, since I know we're hoping to beat our time from last time with the processing of the ballots. I know I've heard you have more machines and more volunteers, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. How many stations or machines and volunteers are participating in that? I think that would be some great information to share. And that's
Yeah,
it for
good.
my questions.
Oh, thank you.
So throughout the day, we have about 125 volunteers that will be participating in the pre-canvass. We have a morning shift and we have an evening shift. So we have those people. I believe we're set up downstairs for 70 people at any time to be opening ballots, as well as we have lead volunteers that are helping with other things. We have 6 openers now. We also have 6 high-speed scanners, where those scanners will be manned starting by 9 a.m. tomorrow, all day long until we're done. We wait a little bit here in Lancaster because I only have so many staff. So some of them are down answering the phones in the morning, and then usually our phones die down around 9, not hugely, but enough that I can pull people off that they can come up and actually help start scanning ballots. So that will, once that starts, then we're there until we're there. But yes, we do have 125. Typically, we're about 30 to 40 volunteers. So, you can see we've tripled our numbers as to what we typically have, but we've also tripled the number of ballots returned since the spring. So as you can see, with how many ballots we have, we just keep adding on volunteers to make our process continue to work with what we need to do.
And equipment. We've identified pinch points through the previous processes. That's why we've upped our number of our equipment. And so in the beginning, obviously you can't scan anything because we need to open, flatten, and whatnot. So that's why the time lag. But once those are opened, and it's just scan through those truly high-speed scanners this time. That was one of those pinch points. We identified the opening because the scanners were going faster than our opening was going, so that's why we brought in more openers. So we've identified throughout the time, all the elections, that any potential pinch points to be able to make sure that we are smooth sailing, knock on wood. Yeah, but good question, thank you.
And we should note for the record, as we always say, we have credentialed official poll watchers from the parties, from the campaigns, and then credentialed press there throughout the process. And we're going to have periodic updates for the media as well. And Michael has those dates.
Yeah, Michael has those times. Yeah, sure. I forget what times they are. And it'll be done in this room. Michael will give that out, just in case anybody's interested.
And while Michael's coming up to the podium, I just want to also mention, Krista, I think you'll be happy to hear at our admin meeting this morning, because the commissioners will be there to open up the pre-canvassing starting at 7. But it was requested that we give our remarks before that time to thank the volunteers. We don't take up, so you'll have 10 more minutes that we're not going to take up from the starting at 7.
We want 7:01.
Yeah.
We want you.
We won't be blowhards. We'll get in and get out. Just thank them.
Yeah. Ray usually has his half-hour lecture that he wants
What?
to give ahead of time, but yeah.
No, go ahead, Michael. Thank you for that.
So we'll have updates tomorrow at 10, 3, 7, and 10. In the past, we only typically have done 3, but just because of the volume this year, we will add the additional one at 10 o'clock. So all of our evening TV folks who are trying to get it in before the 11 o'clock broadcast will make sure that you get the information you need. And then if there's obviously any media folks who are listening in online, please feel free to reach out and we'll get you those media guidelines so you can get registered for seeing the pre-canvass.
So that's 10 a.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m., and 10 p.m. in this room.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Anybody have anything else?
Morning, Commissioners. Tom Lucy, LNP. Wanted to ask if I need to make Krista get up again, but maybe the board could answer this. Is there a plan for how different returns will be uploaded to the website? Will the bulk of mail-in ballots that were processed during the day, will those come in first, close to the close of polls, or will you wait until some in-person returns come in if there's a plan set for that?
Sort of a game day thing, depending on how far along we are. We do have the different buckets now. That was something new. We did this primary where it's not all dumped into one category. It's nice to be able to see the different categories.
You're talking about on the website?
On the
just so
website,
people
yeah,
are
our new
clear.
web, yes, thank you. I know what I'm talking about. It doesn't necessarily. Yeah, so, you know, once we have a good amount, and it really depends on, we have to put those on a drive and get them to the warehouse. And so it takes time to get that whole warehouse going and picking up the stuff from the polls and then get the computers fired up, whatnot. So it's not gonna be like at 8 o'clock you're gonna see results. It's gonna be somewhere between 8, we'll say 9:30-ish.
I will say, I do think we plan to put up the first batch of mail ballots around 8, like between 8 and 8:30 though, just
Okay.
because we
Yeah.
can at least put those up, that'll be one thing we have. But yes, then the rest of them will probably be about 9:30 till we start scanning it out.
Right.
Great, thank you. Regarding the challenge overseas applications, could
Ballots, you said applications.
No,
ballots.
yeah, they're ballot, those are ballots.
Okay. What's kind of the, I guess, what's the requirement of the county as far as notification? Is it kind of making a best effort or using the, I guess, if it's federal voter data or whatever contact information you like are required to use, I guess?
We're required under the act to provide notification, and so we were doing so, and we were working with the Department of State to obtain contact information.
Is there a deadline that the affected voters must be notified by?
Not under the act. I will say that a hearing must be held within 5 days after the election.
Will the affected individuals have a chance to attend the hearing on Friday?
We are working on procedures currently.
But obviously, it's a public hearing, so
Yeah,
anybody can be there.
I guess, and they could defend themselves or, you know, whatever they want.
Under the law, the presumption is that they are allowed to vote, so the burden is on the challenger.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily appropriate to say they are there to
Right,
defend
okay,
themselves.
okay. And the 723, could you at least, you know, as far as what you know now, is it at least one challenger? Can you say if it's one challenger?
It's at least one challenger. It is at least one person. We are processing these documents as we just got them late on Friday.
So you can't yet say that it's just one challenger?
I am not providing any information regarding that currently. We are still reviewing all of these documents. We have not scanned them. We have barely counted them, so no.
Okay. And maybe this is a question for the board. Will the state Supreme Court's decision recently on UOCAVA voters, will that in any way inform, you know, the adjudication on Friday as far as how you adjudicate this?
We will gather all information to be able to make a decision. I'm not sure how that weighs in, if it does or doesn't, but we have to hold the hearing.
I mean, obviously, we'll have to have the relevant legal standard to judge that by, as we've said, and you've, you know, been dishonest about in your reporting, but we've always said that we follow the legal standard, we follow the law. Sometimes that's complicated and not that clear. I don't know in this case because I haven't researched yet, and I've never in the time I've been here had one of these challenges. I don't know whether it's complicated or whether it's clear. I know that this procedure has been in place for a long time for overseas voters, so I'm guessing the settled law is pretty clear on this, but I don't know that yet because I haven't researched it.
Allison, I want to make sure you have a chance to respond, so let me know.
Yeah, nothing new or
Okay.
different.
So, and just to clarify too, these must be set aside so they cannot be tabulated on tomorrow, correct?
That is correct, and I should say that overseas ballots aren't counted until the following Tuesday anyway, so.
That's true, okay. Do you know if any active military personnel have been challenged?
Tom, we literally just got this stuff at 4 p.m. on Friday. I
Okay, all right.
appreciate that you have questions, but we are just compiling this information now.
just have to do it, just have to ask. In regard to the 2,500 ballots, are you able to say?
You just said ballots.
You just
It's
said ballots.
applications, so it's just the same thing that, you know, it's easy to do.
Yeah, with the
Applications.
2,500 applications.
And that's an approximate number. so-
Approximate number. I was wondering if you could give, you know, an exact number.
Now, per the district attorney, it is still being investigated, so what I gave you is what she was able to
Alright.
provide.
So you can't say as well that Field and Media Corps may be involved here.
That is correct. We cannot say that. Don't know.
Has the county been able to inform any applicants who have incomplete information on their registration, but it's not necessarily any, I guess, fraudulent or?
Those are being, as we mentioned before, those are, letters are being processed so that no voter who is an eligible voter will be kept out of voting. But yes, those notices have gone out, which is also part of the investigation as well, obviously. But yes, their notices have gone out.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.